Welcome to the May State Transportation Board meeting. I will start off with an invocation followed by a pledge, and then if everybody will hang in there, we're going to do the roll call. So we will start with the invocation followed by the pledge, and again a roll call. So if you would bow your head and pray with me. Dear God, please, in these difficult times that we face with COVID-19 and the scourge that's affected this whole entire world, we ask for your kindness and your love, and that you will place your healing hands on all the many people on the front lines fighting this disease, and that you will provide comfort for the many folks who have unfortunately had kin folks and friends and others that have come down with this disease. Please place your healing hand on all of the individuals involved. If you will, as always, please grant us wisdom in the decisions we make here today, and that you place your guidance, and as we place our trust in you. Amen. If you will, pledge of allegiance.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of
America,
to the republic
for which it stands,
nation
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everyone, thank you. If you would, Kristen is going to and please signify your presence.
Okay, start with
Go ahead.
Congressional District 1, Ann Purcell.
Yes.
2, Johnny Floyd. 'Mr. Floyd?
Well, I heard Johnny talking earlier.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah, Johnny's here. I didn't hear you call my
Okay.
name. Okay.
Sorry.
Johnny's here.
3, Mr. Westmoreland. 4, Mr. Brown.
Who?
Mr. Brown.
Yeah, present.
5, Ms. Key.
I'm here.
6, Mr. Abel.
Yeah.
7, Mr. Bowen.
I'm here.
8, Mr. Golden.
Here.
9, Ms. Dunn.
I'm here.
10, Mr. Boswell.
Here.
11, Mr. Lewis.
Here.
12, Mr. Grantham.
Here.
13, Ms. Lemon. 14, Mr. Sharon.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. I appreciate everybody calling in. We obviously are missing, I think, 2, but that's still excellent. Great attendance. I appreciate everybody calling in. I particularly appreciate your patience as we work our way through these unusual times. I don't think any of us have experienced a pandemic unless you've lived in 1918. So we appreciate your presence here today. I'd like to thank Russell as well and the staff and executive team and everybody at GDOT for the excellent job too, and for y'all's patience. And as we work through all the many issues we have to deal with COVID, not to mention some of the storms and problems we've had recently, I appreciate very much the leadership, Russell, that you provided, and the executive team, and particularly most of all the men and women that make up this great team called GDOT, and we appreciate that. Again, welcome to the May meeting of the State Transportation Board. I think this is, I guess, the 3rd in a row we've done virtually, so we're starting to get this down a little bit, but I'm hoping that as we move forward, we'll be seeing everybody in person soon, hopefully maybe next month. With that, I know that everyone has received a packet, or at least I hope you have. I ask that I get a motion and a second for approval of the April board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I guess Kristen.
Johnny Floyd, second.
All right. Kristen, if you got that down, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Likewise, hearing no opposition, the minutes have been approved. With that, Commissioner Petty, I believe you're going to be presenting the June letting, and I will need a motion and a vote. And if I could ask again, since we're doing this and I can't see anyone, if you would, when you make the motion, mention your name, please. And then the same thing, whoever does the second, if you would mention your name, that way Kristen can get an accurate reading for the minutes. With that, Commissioner, the June letting, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Again, we'll present the letting for this month for June. So before we begin showing June, let us recap our fiscal year to date for 2020, which includes 271 projects bid that total almost $994 million through April. You can see the project makeup here on the pie chart. This is on slide 4. And this shows the number of projects by improvement type. On the next slide, which is 5, you're able to see the value, again, almost $994 million through the April bid award for what those are. The breakdown of the 994 is 839 million GDOT let, and local lets total about 155 million. So let's move in to slide 6, which show the April letting results, where we advertised 24 projects. We awarded 24 projects, and local let was 3. So the presented to the board was $199.3 million for projects. With low bid and bid adjustments, they total $205.4 million. So very, very good outcome last month. On the next slide is we're going to present the June letting to the board. Let me move to that. We're presenting 21 GDOT let projects and 3 local let projects. And on slide 8 and 9, you can see the projects by type, county, congressional district, and who lets them. So I will scroll to the next slide, and I'll come back and highlight a few projects of interest. So when we get to the state map, you can see the project's locations on the state map. And let me highlight 3 projects of interest across the state. The first being in the 1st Congressional District, which is in Chatham County. This is the I-16 at State Route 307, the Virgin Diamond Interchange. That location is also known as Dean Forest Road. And this is, again, construction of the Virgin Diamond Interchange, replacing signals, extending the eastbound off-ramp along I-16, and also including a 10-foot shared use path along Dean Forest Road. So much needed improvement, and this project actually situated within the I-16, I-95 reconstruction project as well. So glad to have this project advertised. The second project I'd like to highlight is in Toombs County, and it's a TIA project. It's widening State Route 4 from State Route 29 up to Green Oak Road. Also has a culvert to be reconstructed there as well. It's about a $29 million investment in the heart of Georgia, Altamaha region, where it widens about 4 miles of State Route 4 to 4 lanes with a median. So glad to have this major TIA project underway, and also a freight corridor project. The last project I'd like to highlight for June is a widening project in Bartow County, which is Old Alabama Road from State Route 113 to Pagamon Road. This represents over a $70 million project. Again, this will take a road from a 2-lane to a 4-lane rural facility with a wide depressed median as well. And this is a very busy corridor, as Mr. Lewis knows, in his congressional district. So glad to highlight 3 major projects for June. So here is the distribution of the projects by type. As you notice the largest percentage of projects, safety projects. So we're very excited about that opportunity. We have 21% of the projects being bridge type projects, 17% are maintenance, and those three I just talked about represent about 12% major roadway projects. On the next slide, which is slide 12, you can see the distribution by dollar type. So even though three projects represent 12% of the count, they account for about 57% of this month's letting. So we're proposing the 24 projects that total about $178.5 million for this month's letting. So, Mr. Chairman, that is the June letting for your favorable consideration and entertainment. I'd be glad to answer any questions, but we will need a motion to accept these projects for the June letting.
Good, thank you, Commissioner. Any questions before I ask for a vote? Any questions from members of the board? If not, I need a motion and a second.
Ann Purcell, so moved.
We've got Ann.
Second, Boswell.
Got a second from Jamie. All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes. A little bit of delay, but I hear no negatives, so that is a positive, and the motion has been approved. Commissioner, I believe you're still up. If you would, on the revisions to the construction work program. You would go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have one project for the addition to the construction work program, and that project is an ITS project along I-95 from the Florida state line to the South Carolina state line. This will install additional cameras, but also changeable message signs along the I-95 corridor. We certainly have seen the increased need for messaging along this critical corridor as it relates to COVID-19. But before that, also the necessity for additional signage due to hurricane evacuations and emergency situations. So we're bringing this to you for information today, and we'll be back next month at the June board meeting to seek your favorable approval for the addition.
Good, thank you, Commissioner. Any questions on the important project? Hearing none, Commissioner, you're still up. If you would, the floor is yours for your report.
Yes, sir. I'm getting told to have everybody to please mute their line. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Give everybody just a moment to get through that. Thank you very much. Let me start with our update for this month, starting with state transportation fund collections for the month of April. Fund collections total $247.661 million, with a breakdown being $238.3 million in excise, $9.43 million in fees. As comparison to this time last year, that represents $89.2 million more compared to last month, or April of 2019. And that's probably a surprise to many. The reason for the increase was the Department of Revenue informed us that they had a one-time settlement payment resulting of an ongoing audit that added an additional $80.3 million to our fund collections for last month. So that was certainly a little bit of a positive surprise to have additional funding. So that was very nice. That brings our fiscal year to date total to $1.77 billion. And compared to last year, same time, we're about 5.3% ahead of where we were last year at the same time, which obviously is a positive story in this time. So the breakdown of that is about $1.62 billion in excise and $152.2 million in fees. Now, if we take the Department of Revenue's settlement number and back that out of this month, that would result in this month's collection being about 157.8 million in excise, which is only about 1% lower than last year at 2019, April 2019, if you will. So just sort of giving you some comparison there. And remember, let me remind everyone that there is a lag in the collections of motor fuel excise through the reporting. So we haven't yet seen the full effect of the reduced traffic gas consumption yet. So as we compare as we compare fees from last year to this year, they're about half. So which would be expected, obviously, with less travel. So we have seen an impact there. So let me move next to employment data. For the month ending April 30th, we have 3,885 full-time employees. We hired 14 employees, promoted 18 employees, and had 33 separations from employment. Next, let me update you on our professional services procurement. Again, all the activities that are required to advance projects to letting. For April 2020, we had 133 contracts executed, valued at $33.4 million for engineering, design, right-of-way, or geotechnical type contracts. That brings our year-to-date number to 1,284 contracts valued at $486.01 million. Also, I'd like to add and make sure everybody understands that all active projects that we have, including the ones that are being advertised in June, are funded. So nobody needs to worry about any project that's ongoing and it's active, a construction project, a right-of-way project, or a design project. Those dollars are there to advance those projects. So there's no situation where those projects would have to stop. So that is good news. And that's unlike some other states that are seeing some immediate problems due to loss of revenue. So I feel confident that we're in better shape than others. Now with that, I'd like to again move into our projects open to traffic. And again, since we're doing this virtually, we're not going to highlight as many projects as normal, but I certainly wanted to highlight one very important project open to traffic. And this project came to us from flooding, and it was State Route 112 in Wilcox County. You can see here the pictures from March 6th of where we had only about 250-foot section of roadway that totally washed out and was breached. But the total repair turned out to be about 1,500 feet long. And I'm proud to announce that District 4 team was able to complete that last week. So very exciting to see the hard work of the District 4 employees and a whole team of people that resulted in this, as you can see on page 19 or slide 19, what the final result looked like. And it was certainly a team effort, and this was District 4 maintenance primarily, but we also had a lot of other people involved. And as you can see from this picture, there's 4 60-inch pipes that our hydraulic engineers determined was necessary. Previously, there were no pipes at this location where these pipes are. So obviously, we've solved this problem for a long time. The estimated cost for this project turned out to be about $1.4 million in materials, equipment, and labor. And we had employees from many offices in District 4. Let me highlight who all was involved from District 4 first. The district outfit crews, obviously, the district-wide asphalt shop, the district-wide bridge shop, the district sign shop, employees from Area 2, 4, and 5, from district location survey, from district design. We also had our materials and testing lab support their efforts, district maintenance office, the district procurement office, communications team that provides such wonderful photos as this. And we had some other offices too outside of District 4, the Office of Design Policy and Support, the Office of Environmental Services, and the State Maintenance Office, and of course the Office of Finance. So super proud to have all this work done and this road open back to traffic, and just couldn't be more proud of the hard work of the men and women of GDOT to do a project of this nature, emergency situation, not only to do the work itself, but do it during COVID-19, where they had to work and try to social distance and practice hygiene and all the things that are necessary to keep everybody healthy and safe. So just again, couldn't be more proud to see this result. That's such a great job. And so I've kidded Van Mason, the District engineer, that maybe he's going to go in the contracting business. He and Scott Chambers. They did a fantastic job. So couldn't be more proud. Now let me transition into. I'm sorry, had another picture there from a different angle, and these are great drone photos again from our communications team. So let me move into a little bit of a discussion around traffic, or maybe the lack thereof. This is a picture of the downtown connector during morning rush hour about a month ago. Certainly a lot different than what we're accustomed to. So let me talk to you a little bit about what we're seeing in the traffic volume trends. We saw traffic volumes be at the lowest on average across the state, 40 to 50%, and that's on average. So that means there's other locations lower than that and some locations that were not quite as low. But on average, we saw a 40 to 50% reduction in traffic volumes. It's interesting when we look at truck or freight movement that initially in COVID-19, we saw truck volumes go up higher than normal. Then we saw them dip down to maybe 10 or 20% below normal. And today I'll report to you that they're back up level or even higher than previous a year ago, same time. So the trucks, I think it highlighted that freight has continued to flow. The supply chain is critical and that we've seen a lot of truck volume movement. So that is positive. When we're looking at the data as well, we can tell you that the first week of April, that April 5th week, and maybe into the following week, second week of April, full week of April, we saw traffic sort of bottom out. So we saw the lows of traffic volume at that time. So the good news is since that time, we have seen increases in traffic volume, which indicates, more movement and a part of the economy that may be coming back. The chart I have here with the question mark on it is what everybody wants to know is what does that traffic volume recovery curve look like? Well, we're going to continue to try to track data and look at it. And I think, again, it's a little bit of an indicator of what the economy's doing. So what we're seeing this week is traffic volume somewhere on average being 25 to 30% below normal being compared. When I say normal, that's being compared back to last year, same time. So that's certainly encouraging news, and we're certainly tracking that. But traffic volume only tells one story. As it relates to revenue, there's something that tells a little bit better story because revenue is based on consumption of gas predominantly. So there's another metric that we look at called vehicle miles traveled. And on this next slide, I'm about to talk to you about vehicle miles traveled. It's exactly what it says. If you take the state of Georgia, as shown on the slide, and put a box around it and measure how far everybody drives on a daily basis or ultimately a yearly basis, you get vehicle miles traveled. And I would remind you that prior to COVID-19, inside the state of Georgia, every day there was over 330 million miles driven in all of Georgia. So a huge number. That number turns into about 6.5 billion gallons of motor fuel, being gas or diesel. So again, how far people drive relates more to consumption. So I show you in this middle chart on slide 23, this is a graph of vehicle miles traveled for the nation. But what I highlight to you is the Great Recession there from 2000. It took from 2008 to 2015 before vehicle miles traveled rebounded. Now, that's just interesting information I share. Will vehicle miles traveled respond differently due to the COVID-19 pandemic? Probably so. So that's just, again, I show you this for a little bit of historical reference to show you how vehicle miles travel relate. And I will tell you, I think anecdotally, if you think about it, people are driving, they're getting back out. We're seeing the traffic volume numbers go back up, but people probably are not driving as far as they used to. So we're going to continue to monitor this, and there's a lot of good data out there. On the next slide, on 24, comes from the Atlanta Regional Commission, and I want to thank them for sharing this data. They're tracking this across the metro Atlanta region, but also across the state using some technology, actually from a third-party source, which is a public source information. And what they saw at the worst was statewide vehicle miles traveled was down 59%. But that's compared to January of this year. So I think it's safe to say we would expect vehicle miles traveled at the worst, when it bottomed out first couple of weeks of April, to be in the 60-65% down. This information from the ARC use comes from this website. It's called Streetlight Data. And if you just Google that sometime, you can play around with this, and you can look at Georgia by county and look at the percentage change in vehicle miles traveled. So again, this information is out there, it's publicly available, and we certainly are looking at it and utilizing it to just as well as anybody else can. But the streetlight data actually comes from another web source called Cubic, and you can see on slide 26, you can Google Cubic as well. And this Cubic takes cell phone information, and you can drill down to your state and to your county and look at how far people are actually traveling. So on slide 27, this goes up to May 6th, May 2nd through May 6th on the right side of the screen. You can see that 27% of people stayed home on May 6th. About 38% of people traveled greater than 10 miles. 28% of people traveled less than 10 miles. And about 7% of people traveled 1 mile or less. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're probably looking at your cell phone trying to figure out how are people knowing how far I'm traveling, right? So please know that this Cubic and others use anonymized data that actually comes from your Bluetooth from your phone. So, but they're able to tell by pinging phones who's moving and sort of how far. So, but don't worry, your personal data not being shared. So I threw this slide in there to recondition everybody. This is slide 28. This is called traffic congestion. So it was interesting that we would like to see some more traffic congestion when our mission previously was to reduce traffic congestion. So as everybody talks about the new normal, it will be interesting to see how this unfolds. But the good news, I think, is that we're seeing traffic volumes trend up. We're seeing vehicle miles travel trend up in the right direction. So I think that is certainly a positive story, because moving forward is certainly critical. And as we move forward, I just wanted to highlight of information I shared with you guys last month. It was that the Federal CARES Act, the president signed on March 27th, and it's bringing $933 million to Georgia. And that breakdown of that is about $410.8 million to the FAA, or from FAA to Georgia to 96 airports. Georgia received the 4th highest funding allocation in the nation from FAA, and the FAA did determine how much each airport got. Of course, we have several major airports, being Hartsville, Jackson International, of course, everybody thinks about, but also Albany, Augusta, Brunswick, Columbus, Macon, Savannah, and Valdosta, all providing commercial service. And then 88 general aviation airports will receive about $3.45 million to your general aviation airports that are out in your districts, and as you think about your airport in your district. So that's very good news. And our team is out now working to administer and get that funding to the airports. On the Federal Transit Administration side, from the CARES Act, Georgia received $522 million. The biggest part of that, of course, goes to the Atlanta urbanized area, about $371 million. But the other large urban areas, such as Augusta and Columbus and Savannah, for example, will receive about $26.6 million. About $49.6 million will go to small urban operators, and $75 million will go to Georgia's rural operators. And we are working now to amend the current contracts we have so that we can get these dollars to all the transit providers. The ATL and MARTA obviously are handling the Atlanta area, and we're working with all the other transit providers. At one point, we had 15 transit operators stopped or shut down due to COVID-19. Now I'm proud to report we're only down to 9 that are not working, and hopefully they'll come back online as recovery begins. So now let me move you into other things that may help drive us forward. And those are some of the federal actions that are out there. Pardon me. As you know, the HERO Act passed the House last week and is at the Senate this week. It looks like the Senate is not acting on this, but I wanted to highlight some of the transportation-related things that were in the HERO Act. It spelled out $14.775 billion to state DOTs. And that would come in a formula amount. That STBG on the slide is basically a formula allocation to each state. So that would be very welcomed to have funding come in a formula distribution. It also had in the HEROES Act that the federal dollars would be 100% federal, so there would be no state or local match required to access those dollars. And it had flexibility very similar to the CARES Act that would allow for the dollars to be used for operations, maintenance, administrative expenses, including payroll. So that is very flexible as to affirm to everybody, federal dollars are never allowed for those kind of things. So that provides a lot of flexibility. So we're going to continue to watch that to see what happens at the Senate level and see what comes out of that. I think, again, this is a good approach as it relates to how the funding could be distributed, because again, it follows the same model that we receive federal funds on today, and that would be that obviously be consistent across the nation. And I just remind everybody on the next bullet there on slide 30 is the transportation reauthorization. The FAST Act ends at the end of September of this year. So not only is Congress dealing with COVID-19 and HEROES Act or Stimulus 4 or whatever that may be branded as, we're still looking forward to transportation reauthorization that needs to happen before October 1. So we will continue to look at that. And I'll remind everybody that the federal piece of our budget is still very significant. It's over 40, right around 40% of our budget is federal, so very significant share. So let me move now into, since we were together last time, we actually had virtual Work Zone Safety Awareness Week. We did it virtually for all the activities, but obviously the impact to the men and women of GDOT out on the roadways was not virtual. They still are working in that high traffic environment. And so we did what we could virtually to share information and get the word out. Very excited that we provided a public awareness video called "Don't Cut Their Story Short." Let me try that again. Don't cut their story short. And it really humanized, our men and women of GDOT about who they are, what they like to go home to, and again, the dangers of working alongside the roadway. So it's tragic that during that very week, District 3 had 3 employees incident while working in a work zone. They were actually working after hours to respond to a damaged guardrail situation. And we had Brandon Asip, who's the Monroe County foreman, injured. Pete Wisby and Xavier Harvey, both all on the Monroe County routine maintenance crews, responding after hours and were hit by a vehicle. I'm proud to say they are all at home now, recovering. Our maintenance foreman, Brandon Asip, had the most significant injuries, and he had several surgeries and is doing well, all things considered. But it was just tragic that even while we're highlighting Work Zone Awareness Week, we have an incident like that to be a sober reminder of the perils our men and women face each and every day while working on the roadways. So obviously this board meeting is virtually, and as you know, GDOT is working very differently than normal. And so while a lot of teleworking is going on, some 1,555 employees now teleworking, they're taking advantage of opportunities to train and to continue to learn and continue to bring value to the department for their knowledge, skills, and abilities. This is a chart on the left, slide 32, that shows you the blue line on the bottom shows you how many training opportunities there were, and the orange line on the top shows you how many people participated. So you can see that we obviously ramped up some training in March and April, but you can see that in April we had 138 training opportunities, all virtually basically, and we had 1,932 participants. So just hats off to Kyle Moat, working with the district training officers and trying to get everybody to take advantage of this time when they're working virtually to increase their capabilities and capacities. And you can see on the right side, the ELMS is our employee learning management system. So again, you can see the uptick in participation who took classes. So we're very proud of that and proud of our team for continuing to sharpen their skills and to bring value to the department. So as we have gotten good at that, we are thinking about re-entry planning, and wanted to share this with you. Pardon me. We anticipate beginning a slow re-entry, a phased re-entry on June 1st. We've gathered together a task force or a task team of different people throughout the department to work on thinking about all the things we need to do for mission number one is keeping our employees safe. And so we also have done things such as sending out a survey to all the managers to see what their concerns are, what they feel like they need from equipment, supplies, materials, and also to, again, further understand what can continue to telework. And so one of the things we'll be doing certainly is reviewing our telework policies to provide more and continued flexibility as we've seen thus far, as we take a very slow and deliberate approach as we begin to work our way back. So stay tuned, we'll provide more information as we have it. And again, maybe next month we'll have some in-person potential meeting as a State Transportation Board meeting. So Mr. Chairman, that concludes the pretty long and lengthy report. And what I'd like to do now, since we didn't do committee meetings on Wednesday, I'd like for Angela Whitworth, our treasurer, to provide you an update on our FY21 revised budget. But I'll be glad to pause now and take questions at your pleasure.
Any questions from members of the board for Russell? If not, Russell, before I really open up for that, let me just say thank you for your comments about work of the Tifton office in District 4 on the Wilcox County project. I'm actually in District 4 today from Tifton, as they've been kind enough to set me up for the remote broadcast here, but I will relay that to Van if he's not watching, and Van Mason and his team, and I thank you for that. Also, the traffic did appear on I-75 coming to be picking up a little bit, so I can confirm what your numbers are showing, which is good news. With that, are there any questions from the board for the commissioner? Does anybody have any questions for the commissioner? If not, I'm not hearing anything. I'll give you another second. If not, Commissioner, I guess you want to bring Angela up and let her make some comments on the budget.
Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. I'm here today to present to you the revised FY21 budget that was requested with a 14% reduction. If you want to go to the next slide, please, Commissioner. As you can see in this, the reduction for excise and fees and state general funds total roughly $297 million that I'll be presenting today. Next slide, please. As you can see here on the bar chart, your typical bar chart that I provide for our budget update, you can see capital projects is roughly $824 million. These are then the general operations. Well, capital projects consist of capital construction, capital maintenance, and local roads admin. General operations is $223 million. That consists of admin, which has the accounting, budget, HR, legal, IT, and audits. It consists of construction admin, which has your design offices, right-of-way, environmental offices, materials, and testing. It consists of data collections. They collect and report on crash accident data and traffic data. That includes the planning office, and that includes traffic management, which has the HERO unit, the TMC, basically the repairs for the traffic signals and inspectors for the IT and NITS. LMIG you see here is we fund that at 10% of excise, so you can see the reduction there. You have routine maintenance with that reduction, and then you have payments to CERTA, intermodal, and the GEO bond debt service. Next slide, please. As you can see from our request, we had to take cuts across pretty much all of the programs. In order to meet the 14% reduction, they gave each agency flexibility within their department to either cut programs greater than the 14% or less than the 14% in order to come up with the overall 14% reduction. Myself, the budget office, the deputy commissioner, and the chief engineer, we all collaboratively worked together with the offices underneath them to come up with the budget cuts in each of these programs. So on the motor fuel side of the house, you're seeing that it's $269.6 million is the reduction that we'll be submitting. In capital construction, you can see that it's $97 million. This is primarily made up of 6 projects. 3 of them are right-of-way split funded phases that will be in 21 and a portion in 22 for projects that are set to go to construction in FY24 and 25. The other 3 projects that we are deferring to the end, till FY22, which is really pretty much close to the end. They were set to be started in at the end of FY21. So it'll be a delay in those projects only by 1 to 2 months. In capital maintenance, you'll see here, this is a very hard hit category. We have leveraged all we could in federal funding already. We were fortunate enough to have the ability to move $80 million out of fiscal year 21 into this fiscal year for them to advance, to give them additional capacity to do more projects. Construction admin, data collections, departmental admin, and planning and traffic management. All of those programs are primarily have reductions due to consulting contracts being reduced, equipment, travel, training. Those are all the type things that have been reduced within those programs. In LMIG, you'll see the reduction of the 26.9. That is the formula. Since excise was reduced, we had to reduce LMIG by the 10% reduction. In routine maintenance, we reduced it by $48 million. That reduction, we're reducing litter pickup. We're going from 6 cycles down to 3. We've reduced statewide striping by 15%. We've eliminated 1 herbicide cycle. We've done reduction in our consulting contracts for MEI contracts that are spread throughout all 7 districts. We've reduced all of our district ITB budgets. We've also reduced the equipment budget at OEM. And finally, we've reduced travel and routine maintenance. You'll see an increase of $1.5 million in payments to CERTA. That's basically a fund source swap due to the reductions. Commissioner, if you want to go to the next slide. As you see in payments to CERTA, the $20.3 million that's included, that's primarily attributed to the debt service needed in fiscal year 21. And payments to CERTA budget remains the same that has been previously passed by the House version. So we left the payments to CERTA the same as what was passed by the House before we all left. In general obligation debt, you see the $6.8 million reduction there, and that's primarily due to the GO bond debt being declining. So the GO bond debt, the GRBs, and the GARVs are showing a gradual decrease. Next slide, Commissioner. And then one comment I will make before I go over the bridge bonds is intermodal was not impacted. We did not impact intermodal because primarily all of their funding goes to match federal projects. And so in order for us to keep, the infrastructure intact and everything going smoothly for them, we did not want to have any direct impact to the locals. So we did not do a reduction in intermodal. Finally, you'll see here the $50 million in bridge bonds. We left those in there. This was in the governor's recommendation as well as the House recommendation. And it gives us the ability to advance somewhere between 12 to 15 bridge projects throughout the state. Chairman and Commissioner and members of the board, this is our budget. This will be our budget submission that we'll send over today after the board meeting. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. And like I say, this is a work in progress for them, and we can see how this all proceeds and goes. And if necessary, it gives us the ability in the amended to make any adjustments.
Thank you, Angela, for your hard work on a very difficult assignment as we navigate through the budget process, particularly this year. But with that, any questions from the members of the board for Angela on the budget?
Mr. Chairman, I have one. This is Don Grantham.
Go ahead, Don.
Angela, I compliment you on working so hard on this 14% reduction as to what we're being faced with under this pandemic that we're in now. Let me ask you, coming in January of 2021, what would you foresee us amending as far as our budget revised for the amended budget for 21 and 22? And what areas would we concentrate on in doing that so that we can maintain this capital construction as well as the LMIG program and the routine maintenance that we have had in the past? I think this is a good budget and I want to move forward with it, but I do think we need to work into making ourselves known that we'd love to have an amended budget for the final 6 months of 21.
Yes, Mr. Grantham. Right now, as the commissioner previously stated in his report, when we were looking at the motor fuel projections currently right now, we have not currently seen the impact of what the COVID-19 has happened to the motor fuel at this time. We're expecting for us to really see what that impact is in the next 2 to 3 months. That way we can better gauge how motor fuel is trending, and if it does recover later on in the end of the year. So that would give us the ability between now and then to look and analyze and see how it's tracking, and then for us to come up with a game plan in order to amend additional dollars in, or we'd have to relook at the program. But we're currently right now, it's hard for us to gauge that, considering that the last 2 months, the motor fuel collections have increased over previous year. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Anybody else have any other questions of Angela? If not, Angela, again, thank you for your hard work. And I do realize it's a work in progress. as we go forward and see how we recover from COVID-19.
Thank you.
That Commissioner, I believe, Patrick Allen is going to give us a update on the right-of-way user fee.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Golden, members of the board, Patrick Allen, State Utilities Engineer. The board took action back in March to open up Rule 672-11 as it relates to public utilities and maintenance of the right-of-way for comments. We wrapped up the comment period on April 20th, and one of the primary responses was to delay action due to COVID-19 and to also give the industry an opportunity to dialogue with the department. At this time, we're not going to ask to take any action today. We would like that opportunity to really continue the conversation with the industry, and with the goal of providing a little bit more clarity in the rules as we propose them. Originally, we have started a little bit of that dialogue now. So again, that's where we are. We'll bring this to you at a later date. Hopefully, to include the revised will be minor, and we wouldn't have to open the rule back up again for additional comments, but we would ask that we essentially table this issue and bring it back at a later date.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Anybody have any from the board have any questions of Patrick? Certainly understandable considering all the circumstances that we're going through at the moment. If there are no questions, Patrick, thank you for that update.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
With that, as we move now, there were obviously no committee meetings, but we're going to go into some board actions. We do have two. I ask you to stay tuned. We do have two votes that come up. The first one, Commissioner, I believe you're going to offer a comprehensive rezoning resolution for the city of Patterson.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We have a recommendation for approval for the city of Patterson and Pierce County. It's rezoning parcel P05011 from a single family to a commercial use. That was approved by the Patterson City Council, also in compliance with Pierce County. So this conforms to the Georgia Outdoor Advertising Control Act, and we just seek your favorable approval for this use.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions from the board on this rezoning request? If not, do I have a motion and a second for approval?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Johnny Floyd.
Second by Jerry Sharon.
Thank you, Johnny, and thank you, Jerry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Likewise.
Hey,
Not
Mr. Chairman, this is Jeff Lewis. I abstain.
I got you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Kristen, you get that? That's great. Thank you,
Yes,
Jeff. Any other comments? If not, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Make sure we have them correct. We had Johnny with the Kristen, if you got that, with the second from Jerry. Thank you. The motion has passed. With that, I believe Commissioner Megg is going to be up next for to speak to the GDOT SERTA resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members of the board. I'm here to talk about the I-285 I-20 East interchange. This is a very congested interchange on the east side of Atlanta. In fact, it's listed as the 25th worst freight bottleneck in the entire nation. So it's a good thing that we have a project going on there to help improve travel and efficiency through this interchange. So next slide, please. Talking a little bit about what's involved in this project. We actually held public information open house meetings last November. They were very well received. This project will improve traffic and safety, but it will also construct 3 new ramps in the interchange itself and widen one of the ramps. It will construct collector distributor lanes between Wesley Chapel Road and I-285 I-20 going westbound. It will construct a couple of new auxiliary lanes and extend some of the existing auxiliary lanes, and of course replace several bridges. Construction is scheduled to start in 2022, and it should be open to traffic by 2025. Next slide, please. So looking at the procurement method, this project is proposed to be
be a design build finance model. The estimated design and construction cost will be between 350 and 450 million. And the assumed design and construction time period will be about 42 months. Next slide, please. So let's look at the procurement schedule. As I mentioned, we had our public information open house meetings last November. And then in April, we issued a notice of intent to advertise, which really lets the industry know that we're going to be kicking off this procurement pretty soon. On May 13th, we held our first ever virtual industry forum. And this was a huge success. This was the first time we had to do it like this, obviously, but the forum was produced as a video and it featured presenters as the commissioner, myself, Chris Tomlinson from CERTA, Angela Whitworth, Chip Meeks, and Daryl Van Meter. More than 240 people pre-registered for this event, and to date we've had over 504 views of this video, and 430 of those were within the first 48 hours. Following that, we had 8 virtual one-on-one meetings with people who are interested in bidding on this project, and those occurred over the next couple of days following the industry forum. So looking ahead, starting in July, we are going to issue the request for qualifications. This will, of course, start the cone of silence on this project and kick off the next following many steps that happen until we actually award the project. But because we're going to be going to RFQ in July, that's why we are here today to talk about this, because we need to execute a joint resolution with the State Roadway and Tollway Authority. So next slide, please. So the joint resolution, this is very similar, the same contractual agreement we have used with CERTA as we kicked off the Northwest Corridor project and the Transform 285-400 project. And it really outlines the roles and responsibilities of CERTA and GDOT in the procurement and delivery of this project. So GDOT will procure the project's design, construction, and financing. We'll remain the project owner and we will manage the project oversight utilizing our processes and procedures. CERTA and the developer will actually sign a construction contract and the project agreement. And GDOT will function as the project manager for CERTA. And GDOT will transfer funding to CERTA to make payments for the project. And CERTA will handle all invoicing and payments to the contractor. So that's what this resolution spells out. And the full text of the resolution was provided to the board members prior to this meeting. And at this point, Mr. Chair, next slide, I'd ask for the board approval of this joint resolution with CERTA. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Meg, for that presentation. With that, are there any questions from members of the board for Meg? I'm hearing no questions from Meg. I need a motion and a second.
Kevin Abel, motion.
Brown.
Yep. Second.
I heard Kevin and Robert Brown with the second. I have the motion and I have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed likewise. Hearing no negative votes and all yes votes, the motion has been approved. Thank you for that, Meg. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
If you will, we will move now into a new business. I ask any members of the board if you have anything you'd like to add at this point under the new business. If not, I will say to Commissioner McMurray and to Angela and Patrick and Meg, thank you for your presentations. I will tell you that as we go forward, we will be getting you some information out as far as the June meeting. While I have a better appreciation of technology and virtual meetings now, I personally prefer to be in person, and I hope that we all are able to gather in June in Atlanta and have something where we can communicate with each other. With that, I will say that we, Commissioner, are coming in 1 minute ahead of schedule, so we're on time and under budget, I guess. With that, let me say as we go into the weekend, remember Memorial Day and why we're celebrating that. But I do wish everyone a very happy, safe, and well and productive Memorial Day weekend. With that, this meeting stands adjourned.